Okay, welcome to the second video in the Introduction to R sequence. This is called a first R session. This is going to be, we're just going to start running some R code, doing some of the basic things that you might do on an everyday basis in R in a Jupyter notebook. So this is just to get us started. We'll make note of the fact that I am going to be using the double character notation to represent a vector. So a vector is going to be XX. Signifying that it is a compound object that has multiple x values, and QQ and PP we'll be using later on. The other thing to make note of as we're getting started is the fact that in R, vectors are indexed from starting with 1. So when I define this vector right here, XX1 will be 3, XX2 will be 2, so on and so forth. If you're used to other programming languages that begin with an index of 0, you're going to need to adjust to that. So let's start by creating this vector and assigning it to the variable XX. So I'm going to have my variable XX, and I'm going to use the assignment operator, which is this little arrow, and I'm going to assign to it the vector 3, 2, 5, 1, 1, and that is now assigned to the variable XX. I can display it by simply typing XX. There are at least two other ways that you can display output. You've probably seen these before. You can cat the output, and you can print the output. And each of these is going to behave a little bit differently. If we're just looking at output, it really doesn't matter which one you choose. And it's kind of fun to know all of them and know how to work with them. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. We are going to be creating a vector that contains all of the values of XX, and additionally the values 4 and 4 right after that. And we're going to assign that to the variable QQ. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got QQ. We're going to use the assignment operator to assign a vector to it. We're going to create a vector using this C notation. And we're going to say XX, and then 4, and then 4. And that is going to create the vector we're looking for. And it looks like actually, so I want to display that as well. But I've already executed this cell. Well, I can actually just go back to the cell and execute it once more. And you can see the numbers are incrementing over here. So I'm going to have this gap. I went from 4 to 6, but that's okay. This is one of the advantages of having Jupyter notebooks, is you can just go back and update the cells if you need to make changes to them. Something else that I might do quite often is access individual values from a vector or a slice of a vector. So if I wanted to get an individual value from XX, say the value in the third index, I'm going to use this bracket notation and just put the number 3, and you can see it's the value 5. Here, let's put XX right up here so we can look at it as we're doing this. So the XX is 32511. The third value is 5. Now I might want, say, from the second value to the fourth value. I can do that by using a slice in here inside the brackets. I want to go from 2 to 4, and I'm using a colon to signify I want to go from 2 to 4. And I actually want to assign that to the variable PP. So I'm going to use the assignment operator, and then I want to display it as well. And there it is. The second to fourth, PP is now the second to fourth values of XX. It's 2, 5, 1. For you computer science nerds, it is worth noting that PP is the values 2, 5, 1. It is not a reference to those values in the XX vector. All right, so R is a mathematical language. So a lot of the more common mathematical computations are going to be built in to the R language, and we're going to be able to use them without importing additional libraries. So for example, we can take mean simply by typing mean. So we can take the mean of the vector QQ, and the same thing for the standard deviation. We can just do SD for standard deviation of QQ, and it's just going to compute it for us. We didn't need to import any special libraries to do that. Whereas in a lot of other languages that are not primarily mathematical, you might have to import a special library to do the math computations. R has those directly built in. So R also has a lot of data sets available to us that we can work with right away. So we can actually just access these by default. We can just do the mean of Lake Huron. And there it is. This is the mean of the Lake Huron data set. And so another operation that is just pretty standard in R and in performing statistical computation is looking at a histogram, and that's another one that's just built right into the standard R library. And there's this histogram. That image is huge. I'm going to import the repr library that you've seen me import before, and I'm going to use the options argument. And then repr.plot.width, I'm going to set it to 12. And repr.plot.height, I'm going to set it to 4. And then I'm going to run this code again, and that is a much more manageable image for my notebook. So that was a first R session. That is the end of the video.